Today we're going to be talking about short-run aggregate supply and aggregate demand. So, quick review of what we're going to be working with. We know that short-run aggregate supply is the curve that shows the relationship between real GDP and price level. And it has a positive slope because in the short run, input costs are fixed, and these are things like sticky wages, and producers want to maximize profits based on these costs. They're incentivized to produce more at higher price levels since they're going to be getting greater returns. Aggregate demand shows the relationship between real GDP and price level as well, except it has a negative slope since producers want more goods and services available to them at lower prices since their dollar will go farther. Aggregate demand is made up of consumption, investment, net exports, and government spending, and it's affected by the wealth effect, interest rate effect, and net export effect. So, in the aggregate supply, aggregate demand model, short-term equilibrium, which is signified by point A here, indicates where total output supply or real GDP supplied is equal to the total aggregate demand of goods or services in the economy at a certain price level. So, when we're looking at what shifts the short-run aggregate supply curve, it's going to shift as a result of changes in input prices such as nominal wages or oil prices, as well as productivity, so technological advances. If price level is above the equilibrium, it's because aggregate supply is greater than aggregate demand since producers are incentivized to offer more goods and services at higher price levels. So this is short-run aggregate supply 1. However, since the wealth interest and net export effects apply to consumers, they're incentivized to buy more at lower price levels, and firms are going to start to accumulate inventory. So in response, they're going to cut production, and eventually real output is going to decrease and shift the equilibrium point back to point A. So on the other hand, if factors and costs of production increase, firms are going to need to produce less at higher prices. So that means that short-run aggregate supply is going to push price levels up, but not real output. And this is what is known as cost-push inflation. Now, aggregate demand, which is, of course, as we said, spending by households, businesses, government, and other countries, also known as the components of GDP, will shift if any of those factors change. So, when aggregate demand shifts right, it's known as demand pull inflation, and it's going to pull price levels and real GDP to higher levels. And this is when too much money is chasing too few goods. In response, firms are going to increase their output and prices. And if any component of aggregate demand reduces, then it's going to shift left and lower price level and real output down to price level 2